to Seasons with the Setons. I am down here in the shop. Again, it's been a couple of days since the last time I was down here. It's kind of the way it works with me. I start something and 3 other things come up. Well, you all know how it is. But I'm down here in the shop contemplating my next move as to see what I want to do with the TV stand build. Every good project starts with a good set and a rocking chair down here in the shop. Do some thinking and some contemplating. A lot of it's just because it's peaceful down here. But I've been looking at the legs that I cut last time. I'll try to show them to you right over there. If you can see them right over there. I showed them to you last time. I'm trying to think if I really actually like those or not. I still have all of this lumber left that looks to be like the same kind of lumber. It may be some type of an oak. I'm not 100% certain yet. That stuff over there is probably a pine. So I think it's going to look a little different when I get it all planed down and cleaned up a little bit. I'm not going fully clean. I want it to be more rustic. I got to get cleaned up enough to where it doesn't smell and looks good and everything like that. So I'm just sitting there thinking about what I really actually want to do. Some of these wood boards are pretty rough. If you can tell, you can see there's a lot of thickness differences in them too, which is going to be an issue as well. I'm going to have to plane them down quite a bit. So I don't know. I'm still thinking about what I'm going to do. I want it all to look the same. I don't want these legs. And here, I'll just show you. These are really, really, really nice. Yeah, I think that's pine. See the difference? I don't know if it's hard to tell. Here, let me turn it up here. You can see how this is really, really light, and that's really, really dark. I think if I make these 4 legs, then that's going to be kind of odd. The color contrast might not be the best. I have to be careful about using these long ones as legs because I don't have a whole lot of long ones. I have to build 2 shelves, well, a top and a bottom, out of the boards. It's not going to be very wide. It's only going to be about maybe 20 inches wide, so it's not going to be very big at all, very deep. But it's going to be about 4 foot long. So I have to kind of be careful. So I'll check back in a few minutes. All right, so here's what we're working with. You can see that this is some pretty rough stuff. See how it's warped there on the end, right there. Different thicknesses. It's not too awful bad. But there's a lot of, you can see here, there's a lot of places in here. This would come out of a horse barn, so it's really, really old. It's been up in the barn, the loft, for I don't know how many years. Seth and I were fortunate enough to be able to build 2 bathroom vanities and a kitchen island out of this exact same type of wood, and it turned out beautifully. They really wanted it to be rough looking, kind of very rustic, and it turned out beautiful. I have a website or a Facebook page called Seton & Sons Woodworking. You can look at that, but I'm not sure if I've got any videos or pictures of that on there. Maybe Casey can put some on there for me. So I've got to have, I want it to be 16 inches wide. I want to be able to have 2 of those because I'm going to have a middle shelf, which will need to be a slightly less because the thickness of the legs. It'll be in between the legs, but the top will sit down on top of the legs. Just kind of be a seamless full top on the top. I'm looking for something that's 4 foot long, and I got to put them together to make 16 inches. So what I've got to do is I've got to take my track saw and lay it along the edge of these boards and cut a straight edge. And then I can take and put it on a table saw and make the straight cut. Possibly. That saw is pretty wore out, and it does not really like hardwoods very much. It's an older table saw. So, but you got to work with what you got. So I'm in a small shop. You can see I don't have one of these great big woodworking shops, so it takes a little longer to do the things that I want to do. Again, not in a huge hurry. But I think what my goal is today is to try to get the 2 tops sorted out and then see what I have left for the 4 legs. I think that's what my goal is. So yeah, that's what we're doing. That's where we're at. And I'll be back in a little bit. Okay, so you just saw me cut those boards. I had spent some time with them all laid out here on the table like you saw. And I spent some time looking at them, which is an important part. You can't just measure because a lot of them had bad ends, and I'll show you kind of what I'm talking about. See, turned over, it looks pretty good. You just have to rip this off right here, and you can have a board that wide. But you turn it over and look, see the difference? Pick the best parts of the boards and go from there. So that's what this is. So now the next thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna kind of lay them out here, and then I'm going to get my track saw and rip a straight edge on one side, and maybe do the other side too. I'll try, see how that saw does with it. My saw has been moved, and I don't know why that is. So, all right, first off, repair the saw. All right, so taking the last few minutes to get the track saw set up. Now, those of you may not know what a track saw is. It's the best invention next to a pocket on a shirt for a woodworker. As you can see here, you have a track. I've got one over here I can show you. This is a track, just a standard, well, I won't say standard, but it's a specialty item for a circular saw. And everybody knows what a circular saw is. Those have done this any time at all or have been around anything know that you have to have a circular saw to do woodworking. It's just not an option. But what becomes the problem with that is it's hard to cut a straight line with a circular saw. They're not really made for precision cuts. They're made for framing. Rough cuts, just real quick. There are ways to utilize a circular saw, standard circular saw for, making really straight cuts. There's a lot of setup involved with it, but then still no guarantee. But a track saw is different. The track that I just showed you is what you actually lay down on your board. See, here's a 4-foot one. And the saw itself is more or less a standard circular saw, but instead it plunges into your wood, and it rides on this track right here. See, it sits down on there and it rides on the track, and then you just run it as you normally would a regular saw, but it cuts a supremely crisp and straight line. This is very beneficial in woodworking because when you are, still learning, when you all are gluing together a board or a tabletop or butting a butt joint with boards, you want that seam to be seamless, for lack of a better way to put it. You don't want any gaps. And a lot of those gaps can be made up when you use clamps to pull it together. However, the better you can get it at the beginning before glue is going to be your best option. And what this does is it just makes really good straight cuts to where you can butt them together and they'll be really tight. That is what a track saw does for you. Make that board incredibly straight. I'm going to do this for a while, and then when I come back, I'll show you what I've got left to do next. All right, so I just spent the last 20 minutes or so using the track saw, which I've already put up, making one edge perfectly straight. I did do a test run on the table saw to make sure that it would cut this, and I think that it's going to. That wood is super dry, so I think it shouldn't be an issue. I did cut this one with the table saw, and it turned out pretty good. It wasn't that big of a deal. And you can see kind of what we're working with now. See this? See how it's all warped? So I have to get that out with the planer, which is the step after the one coming up. So I've got these boards here that I've got to cut. This one and this one, this one. And the way that I do it, I don't have a joiner, so I have to use the table saw to get my edges perfectly straight. If I had a joiner, I could do it a lot easier and quicker. I do have one that's super, super old. It was probably made, honestly, in the 50s, and it's just really dangerous. And I've already cut this tip of this finger off. You can kind of see the scar on this table saw about 2 years ago, working on a project. So if I can eliminate doing that anymore, then that's what I'm going to do. So anyway, this is how I have to do it. And there's 100 different ways you can do it, but this is my way. So I take a tape measure and I kind of go down the board. And that's 3 5/8. And this is 3 5/8. This is 3 9/16. And this is 3 9/16. And this is 3 9/16. Actually, that's not. That's 3 11/16. So I take the smallest number, the width, the least width, and I deduct about depending on the wood and stuff like that, I deduct about a 1/16 to an 1/8 off. So I'm going to rip this board down to 3.5 inches. Now, as you can see, that is going to have the square edge here, square edge here. So now when you put these two boards together, the joint should be fairly tight. And I'll show you that in a minute whenever I get the others cut. Remember how I told you that there were gaps and they were really, really wide when I had them all lined up? That's what I just fixed. So now look at them. Now if you'll look, when you put them really close together, there's hardly any gaps at all. But what now is the problem or the issue or the next thing that you have to correct, or I have to correct, is you notice that there's some warping, and this board is thicker than this board and so on and so forth. So that's the next step in the process, is using the planer to get them all the same thickness, a thickness planer. For me, in my woodworking expertise, this is the biggest pain to do. I don't like this part. With the planer that I have, it's just what they call a lunchbox planer. They're small. They're not really made for really heavy, thick hardwoods. And it's a supremely slow process. So it's about 90 something degrees out right now. I've got a big fan going. I turn it off whenever I talk to you all, but that's the next step in the process. So I'll see how it goes. I don't necessarily know what my ending thickness is going to be yet, but that'll just determine the boards. I'll plane each board down and get them close to the same thickness, and then I'll dial it in. I'll lay them out, figure out what I like, and then I'll dial it in from that point. So that's kind of the next step in the process. But this is going to be the top. Well, I don't have them laid out specifically in the order they're going to go just yet. Once I get them planed down, I'll look at the wood, see what I like the best, what I don't like, and see what boards look the best together. I also have to put a breadboard edge on the ends here. So one of these boards will be a breadboard. There's a lot of using your eye in this process for this sort of stuff. You can't just plop stuff down and go with it. I mean, you can, but if you want it to look decent and somewhat professional, then you're gonna have to spend some time looking at your boards and placement of the boards. So that's the next step in the process. So I'll get that set up, then I'll show you one or two, and then it may take 2 days for me to run these through. I don't know yet. It just depends. I have access to a 10 horsepower planer at one of my, at where I work, one of the places I work in. If this one doesn't do it, if my planer doesn't do it very well, I might just run them over there maybe one day next week and plane them real quick, get them thickness that I want, and kind of go from there. So I've got the planer set up, and it's just basically a set of knives that run across 3 sets of knives, big wide knives, that run across, and it will take and plane this board down, and it'll smooth it out. It will get that cup and that bow and that curl out of it eventually. This is what it does. See where it normally looked like this, remember? Rough and just really old, got a lot of dirt, and grime and all that stuff on it. When you run it through, it smooths it out and it takes it down. It just takes a thin layer of wood off. I just continuously run it through until it all looks like this, and then I know it's smooth on this one side. Then I can turn it over and do the same thing on the other side, and then it makes it perfectly flat on both sides. So that run through pretty good. I was pretty pleased with that. So maybe it's going to work okay. We'll see, but it's going to take a while. It does. There's really no quick way to do this when you start milling your wood. So you don't have to do this if you build it out of stuff that you buy from your home center, because it's already been done. So you don't have to worry about that. But I'm not building a pine, something out of the 2x4s and 2x6s and stuff. I'm not doing that. You can make nice stuff out of that, don't get me wrong. But I want something that's custom, that tells a story. What I say to my clients whenever I was doing woodworking, I would say, I'm building you something that you can pass down from generation to generation. I would tell them that I'm building you a generational piece of furniture. And that's kind of, even as small as this is, it's not even going to be really big, but it's still going to be something that's going to be nice. It's going to be made with wood that, you know, tells a story. How many times did a horse rub up against this, or maybe cows rub up against this in the barn? How much hay has touched this barn? How many feet have walked across this piece of wood? You know, there's a story to be told. This was my good friend's grandfather's barn wood. Also another story to tell. So when I say I build generational stuff, that's what I mean. This is all generational wood. This is really, really old stuff, and that's why I like it. That's just me. It's not for everybody, but that's why I like it, and there's a lot of people that do. So anyway, all right, I'm gonna get at it. All right, see you. So I'm back. So I had to take a little bit of a break for a few minutes, but I was able to get one board pretty close to being finished ready. I don't have the correct depth I want, thickness I want yet, and it's still got a little bit of a bow in it, a warp. So I've got to keep working to try to get that out. So you can see the difference in them. That's what I was telling you earlier. See how this is nice and smooth, and this one's still not, you know, I haven't done any of these yet. So see the difference? So when this gets put clear coat of poly on it, it will be absolutely beautiful, I'm telling you. So that's it for today. I had to work on my lawnmower, found my oil leak. Awesome. I've also got a couple of things I did too that I had to do. Casey come down and looked at it, gave her seal of approval. I think she usually trusts me on those things like that, and explained to me as to how I need to be better at not pausing when I talk. But she said it's okay, I'm still learning. I pause for dramatic purposes. See what I did there? Anyway, it's raining. I will say that. Let me show y'all. It's not rained in probably a month, maybe. And if it would rain like this right here, it's hard to see maybe on that camera, I'm not sure, but if it would rain like this right here for the next 2 days, it would be amazing, because it is so dry. So anyway, that's it for today down here in the shop. Accomplished quite a bit. Again, not in a big hurry, just kind of taking my time. So Anyway, I'll turn it back over to probably the reason you all watch this. I'll turn it back over to Casey. See you guys.